Welcome back to the Physique Development Podcast. Today, we're going to be talking all about Alex and I's flaws and our weaknesses. And this is something where I used to hate admitting my flaws. It felt like a failure, but ignoring them is actually what kept me stuck. So we're going to be diving into the mindset that's keeping you stuck and being able to go over what our weaknesses are or things as far as our mindset of how we used to think and what that's going to look like moving forward. But before we dive into everything, I want to ask you to share this with a friend that you think would love it, especially if you've been listening to the podcast. If you're watching this over on YouTube, be able to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you can go over to Apple Podcasts, give us a rating. That helps us out and just lets us know how you're enjoying it. So we'd love to see that. Have you ever said the words of, "That's just how I am," or "I'm always busy, I forget to eat, I have an all or nothing personality," or "That's just how it is for me"? Does any of this sound familiar? And you might think I'm being self-aware by knowing these things about myself, but you're actually reinforcing a fixed identity that keeps you in the same loop. So what we're going to talk about today is, again, Alex and I's weaknesses and changing that fixed identity and stop using those statements as excuses and started using them as data and patterns that we could really optimize around. But before we dive into what it looks like for us on a day-to-day basis, I wanted to go over some concepts and really explain to you why being able to understand your weaknesses or understand some of your shortcomings or understand things that you feel like are just the way that you are can help you so much. And it's something where being able to be in a spot where you really do look at this as strategy and not beating yourself up for a weakness, but being able to really see that data, because your flaws aren't the problem, avoiding them is. And the more that you understand yourself, the more control that you have. So let's go ahead and dive into some of those concepts here. Number one is going to be the fact that self-awareness creates sustainable change. So according to cognitive behavior therapy, change starts with identifying patterns. If you don't know your flaws or limiting behaviors, you cannot correct them. So self-awareness allows you to move from that autopilot mode and being really reactive and having a habitual response to intentional action, where you can have more deliberate growth and have a conscious decisions that you are making and being intentional with that. Number two is going to be the fact that knowing your weaknesses prevents self-sabotage. Again, I know that I have been into self-sabotaging or shooting myself in the foot so many times. And just because I was afraid to truly admit or know what my weaknesses were. But the aspect of mental contrasting, which is a behavior change technique, shows that recognizing obstacles helps you strategize solutions in advance, meaning that you are less likely to be blindsided by setbacks. So without self-awareness, you're going to keep running into the same problems without realizing you are the common denominator. I'm going to say that one more time. Without self-awareness, you'll keep running into the same problems without realizing you are the common denominator. The third reason this is important is because it builds a growth mindset. So people with a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset see flaws as opportunities for learning, not as defining failures. So when you view your shortcomings as data and not identity, you are more likely to adapt, improve, and stay consistent. Number four is that awareness reduces internal conflict. So cognitive dissonance theory states that when our actions don't align with our values or identity, we experience discomfort. So again, knowing your flaws helps you bridge that gap and aligning your actions with your goals and reducing that internal tension that leads to that self-doubt and frustration. Maybe you're someone who felt like you're always saying, "Oh, I'm going to do that," and then you never do it and never follow through. That is a breeding ground for self-doubt and frustration. And so being able to really bridge that gap by knowing your flaws allows you to align your actions with your goals. Number five is it improves resilience and emotional regulation. So self-determination theory shows that autonomy, or understanding yourself, is crucial for long-term motivation and success. So when you acknowledge your flaws without judgment, that part is very important, you build emotional resilience. That helps you bounce back from setbacks instead of spiraling into shame or avoidance. And this one hit me really hard because I used to be the person that spiraled so freaking hard. And I truly do feel like I've built so much resilience to be able to get back to it and just brush it off and keep going. And last here is it makes you a better decision maker. So awareness of your weaknesses helps you make better choices by accounting for them. So if you know you struggle with discipline at night, you won't rely on willpower. You'll set up structure and environment hacks instead. So the takeaway here is that self-awareness isn't self-criticism, it's self-mastery. So when you acknowledge and work with your flaws instead of avoiding them, you gain control over your behavior, mindset, and results. Because it's not about being perfect, it's about being in the driver's seat of your own growth.
Wow.
So lots of benefits on why it's important to be able to shift that mindset and that fixed identity and really be able to just understand your flaws, which I know that you and I have both dealt with, like perfectionism or wanting to appear like we don't have flaws or not wanting to fail. A lot of people don't want to fail. And so it can be very hard to like face those head on.
Very difficult. And being willing to not only face them head on, but be willing to work at them, I think is very difficult to come to terms with.
Do you feel like there are things that you used to think of like, oh, that's just how I am, that you have been able to change?
Very many things.
Well, why don't you start off of what is one of those things that's either a weakness or something that you felt like was holding you back or that you had that fixed identity with?
I probably felt like, I mean, there's so many things that come to mind. I know we have like the set weaknesses that we wanted to pinpoint specifically, but just thinking about the things I identified with, probably the first one is lack of organization. Like I'm just not an organized person. That is one that I held on to, I mean, for a while. And I would not say that I'm a well-organized person now, but I am a better organized person than I was. And am continuing to get better with them by putting things in place, like realizing I may just need more tools than the other person in terms of getting organized, whether it be a little bit of a fancier tool. For example, with my client notes, like getting the Remarkable pad I was on the fence about getting this tool for my organization of client work for, I don't know,
a year or two.
a year or two. I mean, I talked about it forever and tried to reason with myself why it was the best thing for me to do, and deciding, it's not worth it. I can do the same thing with a notepad and just keeping the notes organized in that way. And would continue to find myself like, man, I'm losing some of these notes. I'm getting lost. This is all jumbled up. And when I finally just made the investment into getting the Remarkable pad, my notes for clients are way better organized. And I feel it's way easier to access all of the written notes that I generally have. And so that's one instance amongst many.
Yeah, I think that in that, again, it's knowing yourself of, maybe taking written notes would work for someone else, but for you, instead of just feeling like you're hitting your head into the wall, it's like, let's figure out how to work around this based on some of these, again, deficiencies I might have or these identities that I have within it. And I love that you brought up of just stating over yourself of like, I'm just not an organized person, because I haven't heard you say that as much recently. And even just not vocalizing it, I think helps a ton. But I used to be of like, oh, I'm just always late. And that's one of my big things is that I have ADHD, and that comes with time blindness. And for a while, I didn't know that's what it was. I really just was like, oh, I'm just always late. That's kind of like my thing. And it was like, no, that's just being disrespectful. And you can do something about it. And so some things that I did about it was, instead of just being like, oh, I can't figure this out, or I am just chronically late, is that I went ahead and timed myself doing things that I normally did on a day-to-day basis, because I started to realize these patterns of, oh, I'm always putting in my calendar that it takes an hour to do this, but I'm always running into the next thing. And so I literally walked around with a stopwatch and timed myself doing things of like, how long does it take me to make breakfast on average? How long does it take me to do my hair, whether it's washing my hair or styling my hair? How long does it take me to do my makeup? How long does it take me to decide on an outfit? Because my mind would never put in time for how long it took to drive someplace. Like if something started at 5, I'd be like ready at 5 maybe. But then it's like, oh, I still have to drive to the place. And so I also would be like, oh, all I have to do is put on an outfit. But if I haven't put on that outfit before and I just have it in my head, what are the chances that it's all set to go and I have everything all good? And so I really first started with trying to understand how long things took. And then it was something where I had to put in buffer time because I realized that I would put things in my schedule with the hope that it would only take that long. But then again, I would realize, hey, oftentimes this ends up taking longer than I think. And so that's actually something that for me, it works. It might not work for everyone, but I'll put in extra time for something because then if I do finish early, then it feels like, oh, I have bonus time or I have free time instead of feeling like, oh, I've now gotten to the time and I need more time because it's like that mental association of like, oh, now I've failed because I didn't keep it within this time frame of I now can be like, oh, this feels like a bonus because I finished it early. And do I finish everything early? No. But if I do, then I'm like, oh, I get a little extra time in my day, or I learned something of this did end up taking less time. I can now make that note for scheduling that moving forward. And I also put a lot of buffers in my schedule of just like, hey, finishing breakfast, it's not like you finish breakfast and go directly to your desk in 1 minute time and then you're working at your desk. Maybe let's put in a 15-minute buffer there of getting the plates up from breakfast, letting the dogs out if you need to, getting your drinks filled up, and then getting to your desk. Because it would be like, oh, these like 15-minute pockets, but those can add up really quickly of like, oh, now my day is 2 hours behind. But I had to be able to learn those things about myself and be able to even see if like physical timers work really well for me, and being able to like really plan my day in advance because I was so on the reactive every single day and then wondering why I couldn't get anything done. And so it was really of not just accepting, oh, I'm just bad at time. It was now, I'm not going to say it that way anymore, but what can I do to be able to work around this? So instead of like, I didn't fix my tendency to overschedule. I really just learned to build in buffer time to work with what my downfalls were or my deficiencies were of, hey, I think it doesn't take any time to drive anywhere. I think it doesn't take any time to get dressed. And it's like, no, those all take time. Put them in your schedule. And now you're starting to see, oh, this is the actual time that I have in a day. And that's very eye-opening as well of me not wasting as much time because it was like, oh, I actually don't have this time to waste. Low reps is best.
High reps is best.
Fruit is so
It's
good.
terrible for
you should lift heavy.
High reps,
Carbs
low
are
weight.
needed.
Keto
Squats
for
are
life.
bad for your
Squats
knees.
are great
You
for your
should
knees.
squat ass to
Knees over
grass.
toes.
It's fine. It fits my macros.
Macros is for idiots.
When there are so many mixed messages going around, it's hard to know what you should even do or focus on. But that's exactly where Physique Development one-on-one coaching comes in. You might have heard of online coaching or even hired a coach before, but we believe in teaching you the why behind what we do while truly taking your life into consideration. We want to train, educate, and empower you to reach your goals and help you to stop spinning your wheels and just finally feel good. And hey, we're here to help you look good too. You need you. Your health is your wealth. So join Physique Development and let us be the last coach you ever need.
Right. When you're tracking your time, how are you, like what tools are you using to do that? Because I have something that comes to mind that would be like a hard no as to why you wouldn't use this specific thing to track your time. So I'm curious of what you used.
At first, I literally just did carry around a stopwatch and then I like just used the notes app on my phone. But then I did get into using a spreadsheet and did like a full on time study to be able to mark of like, this is the time I started something. This is the time that I ended it. And this is the type of task that it was, because I also had to learn how to like clump tasks together and when I had the best energy to do things. And so again, it was like, might look at someone else's daily schedule or like look at someone who's really successful and they're like, my like best schedule starts with this waking up, meditating for this amount of time, doing this, and then doing this. And it's like, I need to reflect on where my best time is. I don't like to take time in the morning to meditate or to journal and stuff like that. Not saying it's a bad thing to do, but I find that I am the most focused with being able to do specific client work or being able to do more like admin CEO work for the business and working on the business early in the morning before people are getting back to me, before I'm getting alerts for stuff and people are needing me. And so I like to wake up and basically get right into my work. A lot of people don't like doing that, but I was able to reflect on when I have the best focus for that. And then, okay, how many hours in a row can I do this type of work before I need a break? How much time do I need to have in between this to go into the next thing? And being able to set those boundaries for myself. So I just had like a spreadsheet. And then at the end of it, it was really great because I reflected on the week and went through what do I need to eliminate? what do I need to automate and what do I need to delegate? And that was something where I remember the first time that I did a time study when you and I were talking about something, you were like, what's a way that I can help out? And I was like, honestly, you making sure the dogs like get out and are fed in the morning. And like you took that off of my plate. And sometimes, of course, like situations change and I do it and you do it. But for the most part, like that's now your responsibility. And that helps me a ton in the morning because I realized it was prolonging things for me. It was harder to get into work and it was this barrier and I just had to speak up. And then we were able to kind of switch tasks and it's like, okay, I do this thing. Now you do this thing. And then we were able to streamline our own schedules.
Okay. I was speaking to the stopwatch is what you used. The thing that I would say to not use is probably your phone.
Yeah.
Because I think if you try to use your phone and the stopwatch on there, there's just too much possibility of you venturing into other stuff on your phone, answering messages, getting on social media. I mean, the opportunities are endless.
Literally.
To get distracted. And so I would use like your Garmin watch is a good option of like using the stopwatch on there. There's tracking apps on your computer that you can use to help you with it. You can also like there's little stopwatches, I suppose, that you would get on Amazon, but not like the stopwatch that your track coach had, like a little bit nicer for what sits on your desk type situation. And so using those instead of your phone, I think is a better tool for what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, definitely. I literally used like the track watch, stopwatch, because it's what we have from like in the gym. And it was something where it was just so nice because I wasn't getting sucked into my phone and I was able to just kind of write it down. Now, of course, it took some time to write stuff down and I had to realize like this is taking time to write everything down. But if you're just like, oh, this is going to take extra time, I don't want to do it. It's like, I had to take that little bit of extra time to fine tune my schedule to streamline the rest of my weeks and days. That made my life so much easier. So it was worth it to take a little bit of extra time to understand myself more.
And if it feels overwhelming, just pick a portion of your day that maybe you're finding yourself falling behind or you want to have better organization to. So maybe it's just your morning that you're trying to get a better grasp of, and you can use the stopwatch then, and then let the rest of your day be as it is. But over time, I'm sure that you'll feel more comfortable to just get through the entire day of tracking, but it may feel overwhelming at the beginning. I know that when I did the first time study, I was pretty reluctant to do it because it felt like it was going to be this massive time suck. And it really wasn't. It actually was, it was beneficial to my time because I was just more cognizant of how I was spending my time. And I did not want to put into the tracker that I was wasting time.
Yeah.
And so I was using my time better by being more accountable. Shocker.
Yeah. Those are some of like I feel like most efficient weeks because I'm like, oh, even if I'm not even someone else looking at it, I'm like, I'm typing it up and I want it to all look like I did everything that I was supposed to do. And so it's like, well, I'm not going to be like, oh, I spent an hour scrolling on my phone. Like, I don't want to write that. Yeah. And so I'd be like, I'm not going to do it.
That makes me think of the AI tracking app I use for my computer called Rise. And it has my schedule of like what I'm supposed to be doing. And then it is using the AI to track what I was on in that window of time. And so I'm able to go back and see of like what websites were visited, how long was I on specific things. And like if I'm supposed to be doing check-ins and I get carried away with some, sale email that I got in the middle of it, and I'm looking at that website for 15 minutes during the check-ins, I'm able to call myself out. And so then, it gives me that feedback on a week-to-week basis, which it just continues to further the accountability.
And for that, that's something where like you know that you get distracted a little bit easier. And so it's being able to have, again, that extra step of accountability where someone else might not need that, but it doesn't mean that it's bad that you need it. It's just working around the circumstances that you have. And it's cool because when I'm in your office and like, let's say you pull something up, the screen will be like, hey, is this a distraction or do you need this for the thing that you're doing? Because sometimes like you might need to access YouTube when you are doing a client check-in,
Sure.
But sometimes you might be pulling up YouTube to be distracted and watch a podcast or some video. And so it's cool that it asks you that and kind of put that reminder to be like, oh, I need that reminder in my face instead of getting carried away, because both you and I can go down rabbit holes like nobody's business. Yeah. And so it's just, again, that extra form of accountability of like, if I know that this is something I struggle with, why not not get help for it instead of being like, no, I'm going to just hit my head against the wall and hope that it changes? It's like, that doesn't make any sense.
Exactly. I'll have a link for that tracking app in the description. So you guys can check that out if you're interested. It's really cool. I love it.
For the Remarkable. Neither of these are sponsored unless Rise or Remarkable, you want to sponsor us,
true.
Then we'll hit you up.
I love both of them dearly. Okay, so my first weakness is very aligned with yours, just said differently. So the weakness itself is overcommitting and answering with what I want rather than what is realistic. Because I can get very caught up in the moment of being excited to help with specific things or to be able to, just take it off of somebody else's plate and have the responsibility myself without taking into any consideration of what I'm actually capable of in that time frame. And an easy example that's fairly recent is that I was shooting with Cash and he was needing some voiceovers for the content that we just shot. And I had a full day following us shooting of me doing training programs that was already in my calendar. And I knew very well that that was what was ahead of me. As he's leaving the house, I say, I'll have the voiceovers to you tonight. That was unprovoked. I literally just blurted that out because in my head, that's what I want. I want to get it done so he has all the stuff so he can edit everything and get it back to me as fast as possible. But I'm not taking into account my evening is already taken up with the training programs that I know I'm going to have to write. And I will prioritize those training programs over the voiceovers 10 out of 10 times. So that's an example where I just get excited in a moment and go with what I want to happen. I texted him about an hour after he left and said, that was a lie. I don't know why I said that out loud.
That was a dirty toucan lie.
That's not how that works. So I'll get that to you on Monday. So, overcommitting is a strong one for me. And I go through, it's a little cyclical because the more behind or the more exhausted that I physically am, the more that this comes out. The more rested and on schedule, if you will, or up to date on things I am, the less this happens, which makes sense in the context of like what you're looking at, because I'm probably compensating to a degree when I'm run down and behind. And I just want a little bit of positivity, because I'm feeling very beat down myself. And so I'm kind of, trying to figure it out for myself in that window. But how I work through this is one, being a little bit slower to speak, that being one part. Being a little bit slower to speak in situations where I can get excited or I'm presented with a project or opportunity that is enticing to me, because the greater difficulty to a project or a task that's brought to me, the more excited I get. And those are generally the situations that need more time anyway. So, being a little bit slower to speak, and then also using the time blocking in my calendar and being honest within those, because I could fib a little bit and say just what you talked about, where I'd be shorter windows than what they actually were, and then be disappointed in myself. And so just giving me accurate windows and then making adjustments as things go on throughout the day. Like I would love to sit here and say that as I wake up, my Google Calendar set for that day from the day before, and it just goes exactly to plan. And that happens, 3, maybe 4 days at the absolute most per week, and sometimes only once or twice. And so I have to be able to make those adjustments and just be okay with those adjustments for what they are, because things are going to pop up.
Yeah. And I think that it definitely is something that you have improved on for sure, especially since we met. It has come like leaps and bounds from where it is, but you often will like oversimplify what it takes to get something done. And so you truly in your heart of hearts believe I can get this done. And it's something that I so admire. And it's something that's pushed me to be better of like, you think that you can do anything and you think that you can do it faster than what reality might be. So it's a huge blessing of like your push for our family, for the business, for being able to like dream big. It's so needed, but it's also something that then pulls you back because you end up overloading yourself and then thinking I can still get all of this done. And then you just get overwhelmed, and then you kind of put yourself in that beat down to then overcommit to more things, which it's just also of like, sometimes you'll even run things by me and it's not of like, oh, you're asking permission to do anything, but it's just, you kind of need an outside perspective of like, you've brought a few different projects to me over the past few months of being like, oh, I'm thinking of doing this and I'm thinking of doing this. And I'll just sit there and kind of talk through of like, all right, are you taking into consideration, we have this going on at this time of the month. You also have this project that you're also working on, and you have your normal work, which already takes up a full work day. Do you actually think that this can happen that way? And sometimes it's hard to like admit that it can't because you want it to. But again, you have to realize of like what you want versus like what is reality is different. And just being able to, again, recognizing it as the first step and then being able to have those different things in place, which again, you've come so freaking far by being able to do that. And it's really just of like, we also understand of like, you look on a, like you kind of look at each day as a day. And I'm more of like, let me zoom out and look at the whole week, the whole month. And so it works really well for us to be able to chat through those things together. And same for when I get like really overwhelmed about something, of you being able to like breathe encouragement into me of like, you can actually get this done, and be able to push through that. But it's kind of just taking off those rose-colored glasses a little bit, because you also have like, you've done something once, you're like, that was easy, I did it. And you kind of forget how hard it was. And again, it's a great quality. So then you're not like dwelling on like, that was so hard. But sometimes I get stuck. I'm like, did we go through the same experience? Because that felt a lot harder to me. But Alex, since he got through it, is like, we did it. It was easy.
Yeah. I think it's also like a protective mechanism to my brain.
Probably.
It's like a trauma response of some sort.
Could be. A therapist is going to listen to this episode and be like, actually, both of you guys are.
You guys have some serious things going on.
What's that one like hat that I showed you? It was like undiagnosed, but there's signs or something.
Oh my gosh. What's your second weakness?
My next like deficiency, so to speak, is that I often allow work to take priority over my health. And you might be like, oh, like that's great that you have such a work ethic, but not when it comes at the cost of my own like physical and mental health. And so I know myself that I will literally like blow past a time, even if I have it in my calendar. Sometimes I will blow past a time that I'm supposed to be eating, or I'll be like, oh, just a little bit longer with work. And so some things that I've done to be able to, again, like kind of sidestep or work around that is meal prepping. Any way that I can make something mindless to also give myself no room for excuses. I am queen of excuses. And I think sometimes people are astounded to hear that because they're like, I don't feel like you make a lot of excuses. I'm like, do you hear what's going on in my head? And did you know me 5-10 years ago? Because I can make an excuse for almost anything and make it make sense in my brain and to other people. I can justify just about anything. But any way that I can give myself room to make no excuses or to, again, make it mindless, it helps so much. So if we didn't have things meal prepped in advance, I know I just want to eat. Like if the food's not ready, I'm not going to eat. I'm not going to sit there and make protein fresh when I'm in a busy work day. I'm just going to be like, oh, I'll eat in an hour or two. And so being able to have snacks around that are easy for me to grab and then having food meal prepped is so huge and instrumental of like, I've been very candid of like these past 2 years have been the hardest years of my life and the most crazy years of my life. And if I didn't have food meal prepped, like I don't even know where I would be. So meal prepping and having snacks is huge. The other one is scheduling when I'm eating. So even though sometimes I do end up going over those, that's another thing of I'll always schedule my time to eat to be an hour unless I'm doing like a snack, like a shake or something. Because I know that first making the food, then eating it, then cleaning up is going to take time. But it's also that normally eating might take me 30 to 45 minutes. But if I end up going a little bit over on my work block, then I can still be able to eat without feeling rushed. Where I used to just put in 30 minutes, I would go 15 minutes over my work block. And then I'd be like, oh, I need to shove this down my throat. Now I've just messed up my digestion. Or maybe I just decided not to eat for a few hours. And now I've also made it that my work quality is so much worse and I can't focus and I don't have energy and now I don't want to go on a walk, and it just like catapults on. So scheduling the time when I'm eating has been huge for me, as well as always having water within easy reach. And again, removing as many barriers as possible. So it's literally dummy proof to get in. And that's a reason that we even did a home gym. And I like absolutely love our home gym for the fact of, again, if I didn't have that, there would be so many excuses to make for getting to the gym, and being able to have that in place just makes it of like, you literally have no excuse. You can even just go out there for 10 minutes and go do something. And so any way that I can make it dummy proof allows me to show up for my health, even when work is a huge priority for me.
Yeah, I can agree with all of those things, as I am notorious for putting work over my health. But I feel like I am probably the best that I have been in a long time with it. So I'm just kind of leaning into the fact that I don't even deal with it anymore.
Yes, I've been very proud of you. And I've tried to tell you at the end of each day when I'm proud of you for doing something for yourself, of even like taking a walk when you would have normally sat at your desk to be like, no, I need to power through and I need to get all of this done. And it's like, no, for you even to think about getting that done, you need to take some time for yourself. And you've gotten so much better at putting breaks in for yourself, instead of like, you used to be the most hard-headed person I knew on that, of like, no, I'm going to sit at my desk until my eyes are bleeding, until I'm literally going dizzy and I feel sick, because that's what I think I need to do. But it has just increased your productivity and your focus, and honestly, just your enjoyment to be around and like your own health, by taking more breaks, which a lot of people think taking more breaks means I'm not going to be as productive. I'm not going to be as focused, but it's like you needed to take more breaks and figure out what those looked like for you.
Yeah. I would say within that, realizing that there's just a shelf life to how long you can focus continuously. Mm-hmm. I thought that you had to willpower your way to focus,
Somewhat.
Somewhat. I think that there's willpower to getting focus started. And then as you have it started, it's going to carry, and then it's going to fizzle at some point. And at that point, you need to pivot and then be able to transition into another task and come back to it. And some people, it can go longer. And I have like, at the beginning of the day, I can go longer stints, but the longer that I push that boundary, the less I'm going to have as the day continues. So I may have 2-hour blocks in the beginning of my day, but as I get towards the end of the day, I may only have an hour to stay at that spot before I need to be able to pivot. And so then the task need to align with that, of what is really calling my demands in the morning, that I need to have 2 hours continuously where I'm just in this, not thinking about anything else. And the same goes for when I can only have an hour there and really be as productive as what I was for the 2 hours earlier. And so that was a big part for me, but I don't mean to turn my your weakness or your portion here into about me.
Well, we share a lot of them, and we've had to learn a lot of them together, and make sure that we don't amplify the negative part of that for each other, because it would be very easy to do that as well, because we could both just kind of be like, oh, well, I just have a hard time with organization. I have a hard time with timing. I have a hard time with this. And we would be in a very different position. But I think we've both realized of what our deficiencies are, how we need to work around those, and how we need to support the other person with that. So even an example of a few days ago or last week sometime, while we do have timelines of like cutting off work and doing stuff to be able to help with our relationship and to help with our boundaries, there are times where there's an exception to the rule. Like there's the rule and there's the exception. And it's a situation where like, I'm not going to make you feel bad for working a little bit later if it was the fact that you took time to train or go on a walk earlier in the day, but you still need to finish up that work. And so that's something that we're able to really push each other in, that of like, I'm not going to be like, well, you said you were going to be done at this time and now you're not done at this time and now you're bad for doing this, because that's going to put you back into the cycle of I can't take a break and I need to muscle through this. But if you can just be like, hey, I ended up doing this and now I need to do this, I can support you in that and be like, great, do that. Like, no, don't worry about me. You go do what you need to do, and then we can show up for each other later on. And I think that that's just very important, of not only knowing your own like weaknesses or deficiencies or things that you're struggling with, but to know what that is for another person, especially like your spouse, the person that you're spending so much time around, so that you aren't like pouring into that, or you aren't amplifying the negative effects. You're really trying to push forward the positive effects.
Right. I think what you're kind of getting to within that is being able to encourage as well as keep your partner accountable to the things that you're seeing the tendencies as well as they're aware of their tendencies, and trying to find the right time to either engage conversation to bring that accountability in. That's a difficult part, because if the partner is noticing the tendencies before the person actually is, that the partner may wait to say anything, but may wait too long to a point of frustration, to when they're bringing it up to the partner, they're coming at it from like an anger place because it's just mounted. And now that person feels really bad about it, or is really defensive in it being presented to them because it's brought in such a harsh way. And so it is a fine line to walk to start that conversation. But I think bringing it to the conversation in a very calm and not right off of it happening. Like if something happens and then you're like, you do this all the time and I'm so annoyed by it and you have to stop it, that's obviously not going to be well received. Being over dinner, or like introducing it from a lens of, hey, I have something that I would like to encourage you on, or to help keep you accountable to improving because I care about you, or whatever the case may be, I think is a much better way to pursue it.
Or even asking questions. There's been times where we've been sitting, whether it's at dinner or whatever it is, of you just being like, oh, do you feel like that's been a positive impact on your life? Or do you feel like doing that has been good for you? How are you feeling about that? So you're also able to see it from my perspective instead of just telling me your perspective, which it's like, you personally, just talking about you as Alex Bush and me as Sue Bush, like, you know those things about me, like we know each other very well, but also being able to take into consideration of like, that person might not have realized it. And if you just come and feel like you're attacking them, where you might not be attacking them, but it can be perceived that way, then being able to approach it in a little bit different way, or being able to see like, oh, what are your goals right now? What are you trying to do? Because it can feel hard when you're trying to be the person. Like a lot of times, especially with the people you love, you don't want them to experience negative things. You don't want them to go through hard times. You want things to be easy for them. And so like there's been times where it's like you see me struggling and you don't want to be the one like, get out there and train and go do it. It's like, no, I see you hurting. I want to comfort you. But there is, again, that balance of you being like, hey, why don't you just go out there and move for like at least 10 or 15 minutes and then come back in, or we'll go on a walk together. And it's like, okay, that pushes me, that urges me in the right direction, that shows that you understand what my goals are, without you being like, hey, you're being a lazy piece of shit. Why don't you go out there and train, you big old fatty? Like, there's a time and place.
I don't know if there's a time and place for calling you a big old fatty, but
I don't know. Could be.
That dump truck though.
THAT.
All right. My second weakness was letting small tasks pile up, meaning that I can get very one-track focused on the big task, which again can be a good thing, but I can let things that are not on that big priority board for me continue to fall by the wayside, and then let those things pile up to where they're just sitting in the back of my head for so long that once they get to a point of so many things that it is deafening, that I literally can't focus on anything. Mm-hmm. I have to get all these small things done. And that those small things, cleaning up around the house, laundry, Amazon boxes, I feel like we reference a bunch on here. Just
cleaning out your email.
Like a email. It could be literally anything that you're just kind of glazing past because it's not that important. This is one that's a tough one for me. And the way that I work through this is going back to the timers, kind of giving myself a set amount of time of focusing on those particular tasks and just saying, I'm going to do it for 30 minutes or I'm going to do it for an hour. If it's laundry, doing stuff around the house, turning on a podcast, turning on something that's easy to listen to, something that increases my happiness. So it could just be happy music. It could be really anything. And doing it like that, being able to give myself some level of reward afterwards. If it's something where I'm really excited to go and train, but I know that that stuff's going to continue to bother me. It's like, okay, just spend the 30 minutes right now and do as much of this as you possibly can. And then you can go out and train. anything like that will be helpful in that situation. But that is one that I struggle with.
Yeah, I think that it really helps of being able to have it in your calendar, like you've talked about before, but also just like I always try to clump tasks. Now, not necessarily of like multitasking. I have mixed feelings on because I don't feel like we truly can multitask the best, but I think that clumping habits or tasks together to be able to, again, have that reward system of like, oh, I want to read my book, but I also need steps. Okay, you're going to read your book while you get steps in. Oh, I need to do laundry, but I'd rather watch my show. Watch your show while you do laundry. And so things like that make me excited of like, I'm not always through the roof to do laundry, but I'm like, I get to watch my show. And so I look at it of I get to watch my show instead of I have to do laundry. And that's even if I enjoy cooking, but like making breakfast every morning could be something that I get frustrated with. But I'm like, no, in the morning, that means I get to watch my shows. And so I'm always like watching my show or a YouTube video or something like that. And so it makes all of those tasks that I don't like doing as much so much more enjoyable for me.
Exactly. So yeah, that's one for me.
Are you sick and tired of your glutes not growing? Turning around in the mirror and seeing a board for a booty? I've been coaching for nearly a decade, helping thousands of women reach their goals. The most common goal? Grow my glutes. Women in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and even 60s able to grow their glutes with the guidance of my training programs. And for all this time, I've kept my best glute growth secrets only for my one-on-one clients. And that changes today. We just released our 12-week glute growth program in the PD training app. It is a 4-day program with exercise and volume adjustments every 3 weeks. You can easily access the program through our app and track every single workout. Each exercise will have a detailed video teaching you exactly how to perform each and every movement. And guess what? I am no longer gatekeeping. I'm sharing every single one of my best glute growth secrets inside this program. Because you are awesome and I want you to have this program, I'm going to give you $25 off, making it a fraction of what you spent at Starbucks this past month. Use code POD. The link to purchase will be in the description. Now let's get back to the show.
I would say another one of my things that I really struggle with is if something's not in direct sight, it's likely not going to get done. Now, this can cause quite an issue because I also have the side of like things need to be clean for my brain to function well. So these sometimes do hit each other, you know, they struggle with each other. But if something is not in my direct line of sight, I do have a hard time doing it. I forget to do it or it adds too much of a barrier. So like I talked about before, I want to remove as many barriers as possible. So something like supplements. I went through a phase where I was so inconsistent with supplements. Instead of just being like, I'm going to do better next week, it was like, literally, why am I inconsistent? One was because they were in a higher cabinet and they weren't as organized, so they were hard to get to, and it wasn't a cabinet we used a lot. So we moved it to a cabinet that we use a lot and put it at eye level so we can pull it out and be able to see everything. We also have like these little bowls that I have like sitting on the counter, so that when I see it, I'm like, oh, that's what I need to put my supplements in. Because I used to like put them in my hand and then I would put them in my pocket. And then I washed a few too many loads of laundry with supplements in my pocket and realized that something needed to give because I would not take my supplements and then ruin clothes. So being able to have those little bowls is so helpful. And even I'll do the aspect of like, I know when I leave the kitchen, I'm going to close every cabinet. And so if I'm like, oh, I need to remember to take my supplements or I need to grab something before I leave, I'll open the cabinet when I first think about it. I'll go do the other thing I was going to do. And then I'll come back because otherwise out of sight, out of mind. Like I forgot about it. Even if I walked into the kitchen and was like, I need to do my supplements. Oh, I'm making breakfast. I sit down, eat my whole breakfast, go upstairs, forgot about the supplements. So being able to have like those little bowls, having them at a cabinet and just opening the cabinet, like all of those things really work for me. And even something like my water, like I will, even though I love water, sometimes I'll fall behind on my water. And I've done the whole thing of having the big water bottle, but I found that I would have my water bottle sitting on my desk all day in front of me. And then I wouldn't be able to actually see how much water I drank. So then I would pick it up and I'd be like, oh, that was a full ass water bottle. And so being able to like switch to something that's like clear where I can see how much water I've drank is so helpful for me, especially like when I'm at home and like at my desk of I can actually see how much water that I've drank and being able to have it like directly in front of me so that I don't fall behind on that. And it's even something like having the snow gear and all of our layers by the door. So it's like as easy as possible, removing those barriers for going outside and being able to layer up is so helpful to be able to like do my life. So there's a lot of things that I'll just put on the counter to be like, that's my reminder to do it. And then I try to not let too many days pass where I'm passing it on the counter if that is the case. But it's normally of like, I might do it an hour before and then remember to do it a little bit later, which is just very helpful of like knowing out of sight, out of mind. So how do I bring it back into the picture? And we even have this with like our snacks of like almost everything is in a clear container and on open shelving, because it used to be of everything in like a cabinet that we couldn't see. And then you forget about snacks and then they go bad. And so being able to have everything in like the clear airtight containers makes it so I'm like, oh, I see everything. Like that's just literally my brain out of sight, out of mind. So I need to make things as obvious as possible for myself.
On that note, I had recommended this to a client and she had brought up how expensive the airtight containers were. And my response to her was that like how much of the food is ending up going bad that you're wasting money on too. Like if you want to look at those containers as wasting money, like you're already wasting money by not eating the snacks that you have. And it's going to keep the snacks better
so much fresher
with the airtight container. So
airtight.
Different topic, different direction there. So you go ahead. That just completely threw me
the
for a loop.
YMH listeners will understand. But I will link. I don't think the ones that we use
I don't think they're that expensive.
Are that expensive. I'm sure there are ones that are expensive.
I mean, it depends on how many you're getting,
plastic,
obviously.
like ours aren't glass, so like that probably goes into it.
Yeah.
But I'll find the ones that we got on Amazon because I don't think that they were that crazy, and we've had them for years at this point, and they were great.
Yeah, you have to, what you're talking about here, this is a must for you. You have to do all of these things that you just detailed because it's 100% facts.
Yeah, that is facts. I know myself. That's the whole thing. Got to know myself. And sometimes you might have to have someone who knows you well point out something about yourself that you might be blind to.
Exactly.
And that is A-okay.
My third one is getting overstimulated / sensory overload. So this is a two-parter where I can get very ambitious with the things that I want to do and trying to make the most out of every possible moment. Thus, I'm consuming 3 things at once. And for a short period of time, it feels like I am consuming all of it at once, which is probably still not true. But in my head, it still feels manageable. Mm-hmm. That quickly dissipates. I don't know how quick, but quick. And it quickly turns to me being very overwhelmed by all these different inputs. Shocker. Saying it out loud after the fact is a very no duh moment to me, but I still find myself doing it from time to time. And so that's one aspect. And then the other is that I can get caught up in ideas. So my brain is going all day. It is going at all times in all directions, and I can have a spark of ideas that just goes on, and I can be in a rabbit hole without getting into my phone or computer, just of my own thoughts. And what can happen in that situation is that I can start with a really fantastic idea to myself, and in 30 minutes time have given 15 other avenues that this idea could go down and get to a place where I'm like, actually, this idea sucks and I'm not going to assess this anymore. I'm done with it, and just rid the idea, not having written down anything, just talked myself out of it in a short period of time. And so those two are very annoying to me. I despise when I do either of those. Probably the talking myself out of ideas being the most annoying, and probably the most frequent of the two. Like the overstimulated situation happens, but I have a better grasp on that relative to the ideas and talking myself out of them because I get too ramped up and don't think through it. I probably think through it too much and make up these different outcomes that could occur. Not necessary. Doesn't matter. Sucks now.
Or you think of an idea and then you kind of go off on that rabbit hole and then you're like, well, what was the first thing that I said?
Yes.
And it's like, you'll ask me that sometimes. I'm like, I I don't know. I was just listening to you. I wasn't like cataloging everything.
Yeah.
But I often think of that from that one scene from Indiana Jones where he's talking to his dad and he's like, you don't remember what you wrote down in your journal? And he's like, I wrote it down so I wouldn't have to remember it. And I'm like, I relate so much to that of like, I literally write it down so I can kind of offload it from my brain and then go back and find what I was saying.
Yeah, I will now will record myself in the morning because that's generally when I have these ideas. And then I just take the recording and put it into Slack because then it transcribes it for me. And then I see what value came from my conversation with myself in the morning.
It to transcribe instead of paying for a service.
Yeah, just throw it in Slack and it will transcribe it for me. And there it is.
What do you do for the sensory overload?
Stop being an idiot. I don't think that there's really any, I think in that situation, it's more to do with simplify. Get down to the thing that's actually the most important. And in that situation, if I'm not able to simplify into one thing, then I will go and do something active that is removing me from any real stimulus outside of the sun, the birds, the outdoors. And that allows for me to kind of get resensitized, if you will, and resets me enough to where I can get back into work and be focused on one thing.
You've also been using your like noise canceling headphones some more.
Yeah, my noise canceling headphones help a lot for me to be on one topic. And so I use lo-fi beats as the type of music or like an energetic workflow mix from Spotify that it makes for you. Those, just anything that has a beat and a rhythm to it, but does not have lyrics is the thing that allows for me to kind of get into that flow of just back into work and being focused, but not things like dubstep or like things that are going to be a little bit more amplified, if you will. It has to be more relaxed. It can be a little bit more up pace in terms of the beat itself, but still like calm, I suppose.
I would say that my last like weakness or deficiency is decision fatigue. And this one's honestly huge for me you're making so many decisions a day. And especially like I talked about earlier of like waking up and being reactive, you're having to make so many more decisions because you're literally reacting to every single thing and having to make a decision on the spot. And that can just be so freaking draining. And I have so many decisions I have to make a day of not only like what time are you going to wake up? What are you going to wear? What are you going to eat? When are you going to do everything? Oh, what are you going to do for that client? What are you going to respond for this person? Like there's a million different decisions that I'm making in a day. And so to be able to sidestep that decision fatigue, I want to streamline as many decisions as I can. And so for me, things that do that is by meal prepping or planning food. Because if I, again, have to decide at the time that I'm eating of what I'm eating, I'm either not eating or I am delaying eating for so long that I've now messed up my schedule and messed up my mentality, messed up my sleep. Like I can mess up a lot of things from that. And so meal planning and having food prepped. So it's just like, this is what's going to happen. You're not having to make that decision each day. Knowing like what time I'm going to wake up each day, which just, again, it's another thing of not like, oh, it's either I just get up when I get up or I think I have to get up earlier. It's like, I know what time I'm getting up each day. And just having a routine altogether of like, again, there's exceptions to the rules, but generally I'm going to get up, go to my desk and work. Then I'm going to take a break and walk. Then I'm going to make breakfast. Then I'm going to get back into some more desk work. Then I'm going to do meetings. Like all of those things help so much and just take away as many decisions as possible from me so I can actually make the decisions that are important. Because I was getting so like mucked up in these like daily habitual decisions where it's like, why don't I just streamline these? Why don't I just make it that I don't have to make the decision and can just be able to move forward with that? And that's even how I go about some of my clothes is I kind of have like a structure of, okay, maybe it's an oversized shirt with this, or maybe it's this kind of shorts with this. And I can kind of interchange those things instead of like the Steve Jobs way. It's like, okay, it's a little bit of a variation of I know how this is going to end up looking where I still get flexibility and I still get to choose, but it's not so overwhelming. Because again, that's what I do with food is I have a choice at each meal. I have 2 choices normally at each meal, but I don't give myself more choices than that because I'm going to be overwhelmed. And I'm going to be like, oh, what should I do? What can I do here? It's like you have 2 choices. So make one of those choices, but like don't spend extra mental brain power on trying to do all of these other things.
And when she says she only has 2 choices for those meals, it doesn't mean that if your mom wants to go to Chick-fil-A that you can't go to Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
Or like you can sub different things in there and use that as an opportunity. I just wanted to clarify
but on
that.
a day-to-day basis, it's like what works for me and my things that I deal with is like having that consistency with meals. I love all the meals that I eat. I wouldn't eat a meal if I didn't like it. Like that's just not me. So I love all the meals that I eat and I like having habit and routines in place. And so then if it's like, oh, I'm about to eat this meal, but mom's like, hey, I'm going to Chick-fil-A. It's like, then I'm getting Chick-fil-A and I'll just move a few things around. But it's much easier because I've already made a decision to now pivot from a decision than be in a place where I'm now trying to make fresh decisions on everything that I'm doing.
I'll tell you the thing that you've gotten the best at of improving your decision fatigue is that when you are in a fatigue state with decisions and you are done with it, previously, you would still have such a strong opinion of what decision was made for you, meaning that you're like, I don't care, just pick something, whether it be food, it be something on Netflix or whatever the case was. And I would pick and you would not be happy with my selection. And I would throw my hands up and be like, I mean, what was I working with? I literally took my best guess and this is where we're at. Now, you understand, like you are giving full authority to someone else to make the decision, and you got to be happy with whatever decision is there for you because this is what you asked for. And if you wanted to make the decision for yourself or you wanted something different, you should have spoke up. Mm-hmm. And so I would say that's where you've gotten the absolute best improvement because that doesn't happen at all anymore.
And I think just we both have gotten better at vocalizing when we're not in the place to make decisions, where it's like, sometimes I really don't care. And it's like, oh, what do you want to do? But you might be in the place where it's like, I don't want to make another decision today. And so me asking you, what do you want to do? You're like, I literally don't want to talk to you right now. But you being able to be like, I don't want to make a decision, then it's like, okay, then I'll just make the decision. And I think that's helped in those situations of just like, okay, we understand where that's at instead of getting frustrated that you asked me what I wanted to do, where like there could have been frustration in the past, but now it's like, oh, okay, now I can go ahead and take that forward.
Or even adding some caveats to it. Let's say there's a decision of 4 things and we're like, I don't want to make a decision, but it just can't be blank. Yeah. And that is something that you could add in to that situation. I mean, the biggest thing within working with a partner in these situations is that it is not an on and off switch. It is literally just a dial that is moving up and down, and you're having to be aware and present in the moment to adjust that dial. And that's how it all works. So that's there. And one reference that I wanted to speak to with the decision fatigue is that we were getting a restaurant called Piata here. And it was a dish, like it was in a bowl.
It's like Italian street food. It's kind of like an Italian Chipotle, and they have like pasta and stuff. And my mom had literally texted us and was like, I'm in line at Piata. I made a last minute decision. Do you guys want anything?
Yeah. And so she asked the size of the bowl, and she takes a picture of them and says there's only 2 options. I show Sue, and she has repeatedly said, I do not care, pick one. I said, all right. So I just respond, I would rather have more than less. Let's go with the large bowl.
Well, you said, let's go with the gargantuan one.
Well, it looked gargantuan in the text. It looked massive compared to the other bowl.
Well, I was frantic because she had texted me and she was like, I'm in line. I need to know quick. And I'm like, I don't go to Piata enough to like know my order by heart. So I'm immediately trying to like look up on my phone. Alex is trying to have a conversation with me. And I'm like, pause, because she needs this immediately. And he's like, what are we getting? I'm like, it's Piata. He goes, what should I get? And I was like, you're getting the same thing I am. We're just getting 2 of these. I'm like typing it out as fast as possible. I set down my phone to like go do what I was trying to do before. And then Alex is like, she said what size? She said this. I was like, literally, just choose. Like, I can't do it right now.
So yeah, that was one instance where she had a little bit of decision fatigue.
Yeah. So I think, again, the biggest takeaway here is like, I didn't fix my tendency to overschedule. I just learned to build in that buffer time. I didn't force myself to remember things. I made them impossible to forget. I didn't shame my all or nothing mindset. I turned it into a structured intensity. And so the traits that you think might be your biggest obstacles, or might just be like, this is how I am, might actually be some of your greatest strengths when used strategically, and being able to, again, just know what it is that about yourself so that you can make a change to it, and not beating yourself up for needing to make some sort of whether it's like scaling something for yourself or needing to add in some help, like the app that you use. Like that's not a bad thing to do. It's just, again, working within what you have, what your circumstances are, what your things are as a human being, instead of just being like, I should be able to do this. It's like, well, what if you can't? So let's make it work for us.
Yeah. And I think it is one of the greatest tools of building self-confidence, because as you start to work with yourself, one, you become more aware of some of those things that you are trying to ignore within yourself and work on them and realize like, oh, I can get better at this. So you get self-confidence from just the progression of improvement. And then you also get self-confidence because you're just being more of yourself. You're not trying to hide any part of you. You're actively working on these things, and you're probably going to speak up more about it. Like you may be listening to this thinking, why would anyone want to record an episode talking about their weaknesses? Why would someone willingly do this for themselves? And it's because we're actively working on improving them. And honestly, I'm sitting here proud that I'm talking about them, because I'm way better at them. I'm way better at them than I was previously. And it's through my own actions. It has, it has something to do with Sue, but for the most part, it has nothing to do with anyone else but myself in improving the thing. And so I think that's a really powerful way of looking at it and shifting your perspective to see not only are you going to have the improvements for yourself within these different habits or traits that you carry, but it's going to impact everything else in a positive way too, and especially self-confidence, where I think everyone could use a little bit of an extra bump there. And this is, one that's very easy to do.
Yeah. And just to go back to those concepts that we talked about at the beginning, definitely you can go back and listen, but I'm just going to state out the main benefits is that the self-awareness creates sustainable change. So if you've constantly struggled to make that change, being able to have that self-awareness can create that sustainable change. Knowing your weaknesses prevents self-sabotage. It builds a growth mindset. That self-awareness reduces that internal conflict, like Alex just talked about. It improves resilience and emotional regulation, and it makes you a better decision maker. So why wouldn't you want all of those things just at the cost of learning about yourself a little bit more?
Yeah. Well, and it's uncomfortable. I get that too. Like we're sitting here saying that it's easy. It's easy for us to be sitting here and talking about it, but going through the initial portions of this is not going to feel easy. It's going to feel uncomfortable. You're going to naturally want to shy away from addressing these things or meeting them head on and being like, this is my reality and I have to change this. I'm willing to change this. I want to change this. And so, don't sit there and be like, oh, well, because this is hard, I feel like I shouldn't do it. It's like, if it's hard, lean into it, put more time into it, focus on it more, invest more time learning in yourself and on the topic, on the internet or whatever the case may be. And so, yeah.
And it can feel very hard to be looking at the things that you're not good at.
Of course.
And it can feel like you're failing because of these things. But truthfully, being able to just take that time to address some of those things that you say about yourself, like catch yourself this week of, oh, I'm just always that way, or that's just like it for me. It's like, is it really? Or are you not giving yourself either concessions or understanding yourself enough to work with that? Because now you've just spoken truth over yourself, whether you do or you don't. Whatever you say is what ends up happening. And so you might not believe in manifestation, but if you've continuously said, that's just how it is for me, you are manifesting that is literally how it is for your life. And so being able to take that step back and be like, hey, it might be hard to confront the fact that I've always been bad with time. Now I have to go through, troubleshoot this, like have hard conversations with myself. But I literally get told of like people being impressed with my time management now. And it's like, me? Like that makes no sense to me because I even still see it as something that I need to improve on and I can get better at. And that's just how it goes, is like you're always going to be improving. But the more that you can take some time to truly have those conversations with yourself, the more it's going to benefit you. And like Alex said, like you had to do it for you. You are the one that is the common denominator. You are the one standing in your own way. So change it.
If you've been saying or speaking different things over you for 20 years, 30 years, understand that you're going to be combating against that level of resistance in making that change. So if it's been something that you have just accepted about yourself for eternity and you're 40 years old, it's like you're going to be met with a lot of resistance to change that. And this is all, I mean, not that you should be happy about this, but this is self-inflicted.
Yeah.
Whether it be that other people spoke it over you, like when you were younger, and then you just continued to perpetuate what that was. However it came to fruition, it's the reality you're dealing with today. And you have the choice to make a difference and make the change. And it's better to start today rather than in 5 years from now, or to go your entire life not making any change. So you might as well just start.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm sitting here today as someone who has been a fitness coach for almost a decade, but I spent the first 2 decades of my life telling myself, this is just how my body is. I'll never look that way. That's just not me. I spent 2 decades telling myself that. Now I'm a decade in of telling myself something different, and a decade into this career where it's just like, I literally spent 2 decades telling myself that and believing that until I was like, I challenged that belief of like, is that actually true? Or is that also a scapegoat for me? Am I using that to be less than what I think? Am I using that to be like, well, it's never going to work for me, so why even try? And I literally was. I didn't think that it was possible, but at the same time, I was afraid to try for it to actually be enforced that it wasn't possible. But crazy things have happened, and we're sitting here now.
It's cool to try.
It is cool to try. It is so cool to try. And I'm glad, or I can't wait until things come back around for it being cool to freaking try.
We will be driving forces in that.
Yes. Well, we'll end on that note. If you didn't share it with a friend or rate it at the beginning when I told you, I hope you do it now. And we'll catch you in the next one.